the test was a very traumatic experience. It was so painful and so uncomfortable that I vomited a lot and I cried. I'm going to cry thinking of it. It was really traumatic. The most severe nausea you will ever experience in your life. And I just kept vomiting while he was doing the exam. And nothing that they were doing was really helping. And by the time it was over, I was completely drenched in sweat and I was just bleeding from my nose. And like, I was just crying streams of tears and I couldn't stop crying because of how like intense and painful it was. But I thought,
Jackie, how did you find Carnivore?
so I guess I'll just start with a little bit of backstory. Basically, I've had stomach issues ever since I was a child, from the top to the bottom. I've been actually, I guess, diagnosed or explained by a doctor that I have GERD and IBS before. I would experience constant heartburn, acid reflux, indigestion, gas, bloating, and cycling on and off of constipation and diarrhea. Diarrhea has been the worst of all the problems, with heartburn being like the second worst. So when I was a child, I was prescribed medication. I took Prevacid, I took Prilosec. I hope using the brand name is okay, and Nexium, as they all came out. But I was just a child, and I thought, this is not a future. I don't want to be on medication. I don't want to be on drugs, I guess is the way that I looked at it. And so I decided to stop and try to heal myself. And even around that time, I was my heaviest weight. So this was like when I was in high school. At the start of my senior year, I think I was about 77 kilograms, which is about 170 pounds. And I'm only 5'4". I don't know what that is in centimeters. I'm sorry. But it was getting heavy and it was not really being well controlled. And I decided, not only do I not want to be on medication, I also don't want to be obese. I come from a family of big people, and it's easy when you're in a family of big people to be big yourself. And I wanted to take control. So I decided that I would make some changes. So at that time, I decided to stop drinking soda, and I did Tybo, Billy Blanks. And I was only 18, and I think that was the reason why it was so easy for me to lose the weight at that time. And so my weight really just dropped. And then lifestyle changes, the fact that I finished school and I was going to enter college, lifestyle changes throughout that summer meant that I lost quite a bit of weight. And I did eventually gain it a little bit back, but I've never been that heavy again. But I gained a little bit back while I was in college. I think everybody gains weight when they're in college. It's fact of life. But I tried to stay busy. And I wasn't on medication anymore, but I was still popping calcium tablets because I did have such bad acid reflux and like indigestion and heartburn and things like that. So to help me maintain that. And throughout the entire time leading up to 2 years ago, I continued to deal with digestive issues. Those never went away. They had never gone away until, the change. And in any case, I also experienced negative mental health problems ever since I was a child. Depression, I'll say self-eating thoughts, to not use those keyword phrases, right? I've had those ever since I was a child, continuing into college. And there were periods of time in which my diet would be good and be bad. Because of course, when you're in school and, you're trying to work, but, in America, student loans are a big thing. And so I didn't have a lot of money. And so there were times where I couldn't eat very well. And then there were times otherwise that I tried to eat well when I did have money. And I tried to maintain a good level of activity as well. But there were, there's time, everybody diets and then stops and diets and then stops. I finished college in 2008. And at that time, the economy was really bad. And so I was really depressed because I had a lot of student debt and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then I learned about teaching abroad. And so eventually I thought, oh, this would be a good idea for me because teachers stand. And because I was dealing with so many health problems, I knew I couldn't have a desk job because I couldn't sit for extended periods of time. I would have students complain about the smell because I would be so gassy that I couldn't hold it in all day. And so I was very embarrassed about the fact that, because I'm eating these foods are really, it's supposed to be good for you or something like that, or, a balanced diet. But I constantly had a body odor and I constantly had gas, just generally. And that was always embarrassing. And over time, when I went to Japan, I remember, again, things just fluctuating. There are times when my diet was good and then at times when it was bad, but I developed this problem with my breath as well and my teeth. And I planned to stay in Japan forever, but then I recognized that for different reasons, I was going to have to go home. And that really, 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 really depressed me. And after that, I thought, whatever happens, happens. It was kind of a you only live once kind of situation. So I was headhunted and then I went to China. And I really didn't enjoy my time in China, especially at first. So everything was bad. My diet was bad. I didn't really exercise as much as I should have. And I didn't like being there. So like my mental health was really taking a hit. There would be, and I wanted to save money. And so there would be days where I would just sit in the dark with almost no electricity. I would turn everything off or unplug everything to save money. Even though China is a very cheap place to live, I really wanted to pay off my student loans. And I lived a life that was like extreme restriction at times. But it was not good for my mental health. And I think because I've experienced so many problems with acid reflux or even chewing repeatedly these calcium tablets, my teeth started to deteriorate. And even today, I still have a lot of oral health problems. And so when I was in China, that was when I got my first tooth capped with metal, unfortunately, because I was eating and one of my teeth just crumbled. And I had to go to you can't not go to the dentist, for something like that, right? And when I was younger, I had decided I don't want to be on medication. I don't want to be in and out of a doctor's office. Like, if possible, I want to resolve my problems myself. But dental health problems, I usually go to a dentist because how do you do that on your own, right? So I did go and I did get the metal cap on one of my teeth back here. So that was the first time that the first big dental problem. I've had cavities ever since I was a child, just point blank. I've just always had cavities, but they were manageable. And then I think leading up to that point, I had stomach issues so bad that basically I would inadvertently intermittent fast. I didn't know that that's what it was, but I would be terrified to eat in the morning if I had something to do early that day because it would be guaranteed diarrhea. So um, at some point, I learned that if I ate oatmeal or if I ate bananas, I could basically temper my stomach. They would both give me heartburn, but they wouldn't give me diarrhea. So it was like, okay, once I learned that, I started doing that every morning. And so imagine it's just sugar and sugar and sugar on your teeth every morning for years, basically, leading up to when I was in China as well. And so I think that what drove it even more than any bad eating habits I'd ever had in the past, to that my teeth started to deteriorate so fast. And I got the metal cap there. And so I decided, okay, maybe you need to make some changes. And so I'm a person who loves to walk, and I always have been. I'm very cheap, so I don't like to take transportation. So when I was in America, I would always take my bike. But in Japan and in China, I never had a bike, so I just walk everywhere. And so I did a lot of walking when I was in China, but I did Taibo again. That's my go-to whenever I need to quote unquote lose weight or get back into shape or feel better. Then I always do the Taibo, and it always works. That's why I stick with it. But the most interesting thing about being in China was it was 2015 to 2017, and so that was the big time of like skeptic, like YouTube. And I watched so much of that content, right? And so that was the first time that I actually considered so many different things: religion, politics, and even things like veganism. And I thought to myself, I have a pretty good understanding of my political stance. I have a pretty good understanding of my religious stance from watching all of this content, these debates and things like that. But with veganism, I felt that the arguments against veganism were so weak. And also, I have always long been a big fan of vegetables. I still love vegetables. I just don't eat them anymore. And so having a plant-based diet was right up my alley. I think that most women, unfortunately, we kind of get into the rut of lean meat and, salads and things like that. But for me, it was right up my alley because I didn't like animal fat and I love vegetables. So I like meat. Meat is fine. The leaner, the better, because I don't like the skin or the fat. Back then, I didn't. Now I do. Um, and so I thought there's something I don't trust about veganism because like plant-based is one thing. If you, how can I put this? When I was in college and I couldn't afford to eat meat, I felt terrible. Once I introduced the meat again, once I had money again, I can introduce the meat, then I felt much better. And so that very how can I say? It's not very scientific. But even based on that, I thought, what is the way to not eat meat and feel good? I think that meat is important. A balanced diet is important. You should at least have some animal protein, I thought. Um, but I'll put it on the back burner. I'll get back to this later. Okay. So after I left China, I went back to Japan and everything just tanked, absolutely tanked. I think at that time I was pretty secure. I'm not going to leave Japan. I'm going to be able to pay off my student loans at some point while I'm here. And, I have a pretty good job and I'm in control of so many things. I don't have to worry about going home anymore or, I don't have to worry about this and that. And so I just kind of let myself go. And I started in China, I started drinking. That was the first time I ever really drank in my life. Was when I was in China because I was so depressed, I think. And that I would even consider doing it because, like I said before, I don't want to do drugs, and I consider alcohol a drug, but China was something else. So I started drinking when I was in China, and I continued drinking when I was in Japan as well. I ate a lot of junk. I mean, my diet was so bad when I first got here, and my health problems were just skyrocketing. I would have pain in places I never had pain before. My hair was turning gray so fast. My teeth have never been the shape of my teeth, the structure of my teeth are very good, but they've never been white, and they are much more yellow now than they were when I was younger. I've always had cavities, and I started having problems with my teeth, and I had to go to the dentist, and I got my second metal tooth in again back at that period of time. And I had these really heavy periods, these terrible, terrible periods. And there would be times where I would just be bleeding so heavily that I'd just sit on the toilet and just watch it drip like a faucet. I thought this has never happened before. This is not normal. And sometimes these big clots, I'm sorry, because maybe TMI, but these big, huge clots of tissue, like with, how can I explain? They're usually some, a little bit, and it's really normal looking, but these were huge. They were huge. You could tell that that's not normal. It's like you're giving birth to a little blood clot baby. And I'm like, what is that? And so I went to the doctor. That was something I couldn't ignore. But I didn't want to be on medication. So she gave me something, but I thought if I just diet and exercise, it's got to fix it. And so that's what I did. And my weight went up and it was like 69 kilograms. And I thought, if I had C70, that's it. That is the absolute last straw. And so basically that happened. And so because of those two things together, I thought I'm going to completely overhaul everything. So this was March 2020. I was eating the rainbow. I was having my balanced meals, and I was cooking at home and enjoying everything. So much less junk food, so much less fast food, and I was averaging 3 hours of walking a day, being able to maintain about a 4 mile per hour speed. So I thought my fitness was wonderful, and I thought everything's moving in the right direction. So why do I feel so crap? It's like I resolved a lot of the problems that were new, but not all of them. And my teeth were continuing to have problems. My digestive issues did not resolve, they got worse, if anything, and uncontrollable in ways that I couldn't predict anymore. And I'm just thinking to myself, something has to give, absolutely has to give. And I would be so bloated at night and so gassy, and the smell would be so bad that I was desperate. I called a nurse and my family. I said, is this normal? These are supposed to be so good for you. I'm eating so many vegetables and I like them when I eat them. I think my health is pretty good, but so why is it so painful? Like there has to be something wrong. And she said, she basically tried to allay my fears, with, the consistent way that we think about nutrition science. It's not harmful to, it's not going to hurt you, just eat, but you should eat those things. So, maybe change the way you cook them or something like that. Now, the straw that broke the camel's back was of all the abdominal problems that I had, I was starting to, I had been waking up with abdominal pain as a new problem for years. And then I started going to sleep with the same pain. And I thought something must be horribly wrong. And I also am very concerned about my breath. And so I thought if going to all the dentists is not resolving any problem with my teeth and it's not helping the smell, it must be my stomach. And for decades, I had just been, I thought, rotting my stomach out from the inside out with the stomach acid. And I thought it was me. I thought I was broken. I thought my stomach is the problem. I thought that, you have GERD, you have IBS. Those are problems with you, not problems that you're causing yourself, but those are problems with you. And so I decided to just go to the doctor, and I told him my medical history and that I was having abdominal pain. And he pressed on my stomach to check, is it worth it to have the exam? Yet sure enough, there was that sensitivity exactly where the pain would be coming in. And so he was like, okay, I'll order the test for you. The test was a very traumatic experience. It was so painful and so uncomfortable that I vomited a lot and I cried. I'm going to cry thinking of it. It was really traumatic. I don't know how to explain, but they stick a camera down your nose, but the camera is way too big for your nostril. And so he had to shove it in and it caused bleeding. And the feeling of the camera in your stomach is like just the most severe nausea you will ever experience in your life. And I just kept vomiting while he was doing the exam. And nothing that they were doing was really helping. And by the time it was over, I was completely drenched in sweat and I was just bleeding from my nose. And like, I was just crying streams of tears and I couldn't stop crying because of how like intense and painful it was. But I thought, finally, I'm going to figure out what's wrong with my stomach. Finally, I'm going to figure it out. I go to get the results and it turns out that the inside of my stomach is as smooth and as clean and as pink as you would imagine a healthy stomach to be. My esophagus, my digestive tract, whatever, no problems whatsoever. There were these little bumps, and he said these are benign polyps. And I thought, what? So like I've been living with this pain for my entire life, and I'm sorry, it's really at the time I really thought I was crazy because not only had I ordered this test, I was so desperate to find out what was wrong with me. Now I have this doctor looking at me like I'm crazy because why did you put yourself through this just for there to be no problem? And I also questioned myself and I questioned my sanity. It's really tough for me even today. This was about 2 years ago. And I really questioned my sanity. I thought that I wanted to be a reasonable person, a rational person, a person who understands what is what, a person who's logical, right? Based on I was talking before about, watching all those videos back in 2016. That was a determination I made for myself. And to think that, that I could be somebody who's so logical and so rational. And yet, first of all, here's a problem I can't solve. And second of all, it doesn't appear to map with reality. My personal experience does not appear to map with reality. And that really hit me. Um, and I was so desperate. I was so desperate at that time that I decided to just reevaluate everything. So when you ask me, how did you get into carnivore? Basically, it was from there. Like I just looked for any solution that could possibly work. My main goals were I didn't want to be in pain every day. Who should be in pain every day? These people are saying that it resolves their digestive issues. And I think, okay, that's what I want to do. So that's what I'm going to try. What else do I have to lose? I want to prevent chronic disease. The only thing I've ever been diagnosed with or told that I have by a doctor is GERD and IBS. And so the anxiety, the depression, and I was also dealing with this new problem of sweating all the time. I would be so nervous that I would just sweat about every little thing. And when I told that doctor, because I just wanted to I wanted to be as transparent as possible, he said, well, you're about at that age. And this was 2 years ago. I was only 37. And I thought, are you serious? Like, what? So, I thought maybe I can resolve that problem too. Maybe I can resolve the problem with my breath and any of these new problems that I've been having, right? And so I thought, because the way people were talking about it, it sounded like a miracle thing, right? But I was also considering veganism because I had heard a lot of similar things about vegans in the past too. They just say, all of these problems go away and it's the healthiest diet for you. You can, and longevity and all that kind of stuff. I'm interested in that too. And I revisited that vegan content only to find that some of the people I follow were no longer vegan. And they were talking about the same problems that I was talking about because I was really heavily plant-based, really heavily. My meals were vegetable centered, happily so, because like I can't say that they are my favorite food. I don't consider vegetables food anymore. I think they're medicine, but they were my favorite thing to eat besides sweets. They absolutely were center stage every single meal. It was vegetable this, vegetable that, vegetable omelet, vegetable soup, vegetable pizza, vegetable pasta. And then, okay, do you have any meat? And it's like, well, yeah, sure, but it's all drained. It's meat crumbles that with the fat drain. It is shaved pork with the fat strips peeled off, to be healthy. And I'm like, wow, there's a pattern here, a very clear pattern. This plant-based vegan stuff, it seems to not really be the long-term answer. But on the other side, I don't know if it's a long-term answer either, because many people are just trying it for the first time because most people are living an omnivorous life. But I thought, hey, what do I have to lose? Basically, that's what I thought. What do I have to lose? And so the last thing I wanted to do really mainly was to stop feeling like I was aging so fast. Let's say that it is premenopause. Let's say that it is that. Why? Why? Right? That doesn't make any sense. I'm only 37. Like at the time, I was only 37. So I was like, no, I refuse to accept that. And secondarily, I wanted to try to improve my body composition. I wanted to stop sweating so much. And I wanted to reduce the negative mental health and like anxiety problems because people also said that they could do that. So, in terms of my quick results of trying very strict, except I had coffee, I had cream and cheese, like dairy, and I had seasonings. So that was about as strict as I went, but everything else was just all meat, mostly ground beef. And during that time, after 3 days, basically all of my digestive system problems went away. For the first time in my life, I didn't have a single digestive issue, like on the third day. And that was it. I was sold. I was like, this is it. This is the future. This is absolutely the future. I was so geeked about that. And then within the 2 week period that I tried it, there were improvements to my mental health as well.
After a few days and seeing those improvements that like basically hadn't
Never
experienced
in my life. I did it
ever,
for a day. Yeah.
that must have just been like the
It was so
world lifted off your shoulders.
you have no idea because I didn't think it was gonna work. I thought I really thought it was like mind freak after mind freak after mind freak. At first, it was negative. My health problems, not having it be verified with a medical test, for example, and not understanding anything anymore. Looking at this content for the carnivore doctors and things like that versus vegan doctors and things like that, understanding that everything I knew about nutrition science was wrong, complete mind freak, right? And so then I'm thinking, you want to avoid fatty foods and things like that, right? If you eat those things, those are going to cause heartburn. And I'm thinking, why am I sitting here eating these spoonfuls of fat with my mince? In Japan they have mince. It's like ground beef and pork. Actually, yeah, I should say that I was eating mince. I wasn't having ground beef at that time. It was mince. Um, um, but it was good enough. And it's really fatty. So there's these spoonfuls of fat. And it took me some time to get over having to eat the fat because you have to retrain your brain. But because of that initial, the fact that it worked, it was the first positive mind freak, right? So like, I felt like I was just going through so many different revelations. It's just like, I felt like I was living a new life. And I was so happy about it that I almost immediately got on social media and was like, guys, I found the key. I found the answer. And I was just already just so happy. And I thought my friends and family don't have to be in pain anymore. Like none of us have to be in pain anymore. I just wanted to share it with everybody. And so that's when I knew I was sold. I was absolutely sold after even just those 3 days. And then the fact that as I continued to do it, I would have positive mental health days. That was the second thing that really solidified in me that this was going to be something that I do for the rest of my life. And so it hasn't been perfect. It's been a really rocky road. The transition period, excuse me, the transition period was a bit bad. But after like once you get to the point where you develop a comfort level with it, when it becomes part of your lifestyle, things become much easier. But I will admit I've had some ups and downs. I think the main reasons why I ran into trouble were first because of PMS. Almost every time I had my period was about to start, I would crash and burn. And then the second thing was trying to overcome addiction. So overcoming sugar addiction, and then even just recently, and it's 2 years later, and I've only just now felt that I've overcome caffeine. But whenever I would try to cut the last thing out, I would completely crash and burn again. And then I guess the third thing is just simply because I do cycle in and out naturally because my birthday, Christmas, for example, if I want to have something nice, and I will, because my main goals don't mean that I can't have those things. I think for some people, they have so many conditions that they're trying to heal. And they know if they do even a little bit, it's going to go back to what that was. But that's not really the case for me. So for me, it's really flexible. I'm not necessarily carnivore. I'm what I would call animal based. I've tried carnivore, and when I have, those have been the times where I've had the best results. But with a caveat, and the caveat is that there was always some kind of addictive substance. So, say for example, caffeine. And so one of my big curiosities now, because I'm still experimenting, excuse me, is can I maintain my energy levels? Can I maintain the sense of happiness and joy without any addictive substance, right? So that's what I'm testing now. That's where I am right now. But yeah, that's
And how's that test going? How do you feel? Is it positive?
so basically, um, sometimes I watch videos of people who are on carnivore, and it seems like it's so beautiful, such a beautiful life, right? But the secondary question that I have, like in the back of my mind, is like, okay, but are you drinking coffee though? Like that's kind of the question that I ask, right? Because I don't know if it is the adrenaline boost that you get from the caffeine, right? I don't know if it is the mental, oh, what's the way? It's like coddling. I can have this one thing that I want. I can have at least this one thing that I want. And that just relaxes my mind and just allows me to do what I'm trying to do, right? I don't know if it's that. And I don't know if it's just simply, you are addicted to something and it's going to take your body, your mind more time than you expect for you to overcome it. But my experience has been life is like the life of any other animal on earth when you don't have an addictive substance. Everything is very calm. So I don't have the mental health highs that I had before. So that was one of the things that was really motivating me, that it wasn't just that I was feeling fine all the time, but there were also days where I just felt genuinely happy, randomly, genuinely happy to be alive. And so if I can experience that kind of high again without any caffeine, then I will feel certain that it's the diet and it's enough. And if I can get back to the energy levels that I had before with the boost of the caffeine, for example, then maybe I'll feel like it's enough. But it's a question that's not answered yet because it's a fairly new trial. I've only been able to successfully stop drinking caffeine for maybe a few weeks, if not a month. When you look online, it says, 2 days or like 2 to 9 days or something, but I think that's nonsense. Um, I think it takes a long time to overcome addiction, And so once I feel I'm over it, then maybe I'll know what that answer is.
Yeah. I can tell you quite a few months in, I'm still not over it. So yeah, it's
Yeah. So
but then I was a very heavy coffee drinker, but yeah,
that's the thing that surprised me.
it's not 2 days, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, that I don't understand where this time frame comes from. I really don't. It's probably like it's the same thing in most medical science, where it's like this is what we found in a lab, so this must just be what it is. And it's like when you really talk to people, then you recognize it ain't like that. It's not like that at all. And so, yeah. So basically, I want to be able to feel as good as I felt carnivore plus coffee with just carnivore. And so I think it will take time naturally because every lifestyle change has been very impactful for me in a negative way. But eventually I get over it. Like eventually I get over, I don't need to have sugar every day. Eventually I get over, I don't need to snack every day. Because my big thing was snacking. Basically, I ate to snack. And so, and I'm a very, like I mentioned before, I'm a cheapskate. So I don't snack heavily. I'll open a bag of chips, eat half, and save the rest for later. I used to have these little packs of cookies in the refrigerator, and I would just eat one at a time, just one. I just like to snack, and I love creative things. So sitting at the desk and like drawing, it's easy to pick up a piece of chocolate and just have a little piece of chocolate. So that's my thing, right? And so if you do it on an empty stomach, it's very uncomfortable. So then you eat a nice balanced meal, and it doesn't matter if you have a cookie or it doesn't matter if you have a little chocolate, and you just have that, and that's my little moment of joy in a day, for example. And so without those things, without the ability to snack, you naturally start to fast. And so I guess my eating habits have changed quite a bit. My diet is definitely 100% like a complete, like, I can't even say a three, because at least I allowed some meat in the past, but I really don't allow almost any plants except for spices right now.
So
So
yeah, what's a day like now for you?
sure. Um, it varies, but for the most part, I have 2 meals a day. I have my first meal sometime early, depending on when I start work, and then my second meal sometime late, depending on when I finish work, or if I have any classes in the evening. Because I don't want to say that work stresses me out, but work makes me want to eat. It just does. So if I have a really, really busy day, those are the days in which I'll eat, 3 times a day. But if I have a vacation, I really don't need to eat but like once a day. I usually eat eggs and some kind of what do you call it? Not a sausage meat, not a luncheon meat, processed meat like sausage or ham or bacon or something like that. And Japanese bacon is not bacon bacon. I know that you're not from the States, so maybe your idea of bacon is also a little different. But if there was American bacon, I would never stop eating it in Japan, but I can't find it almost anywhere. So I just kind of have like that kind of, I don't know what to call it. It's just Japanese bacon.
It
It's not
it
bacon.
it, it looks quite processed, and it's in a plastic. It's in a shrink wrapped package, right?
And you get very little for a lot of money. Eating in Japan is very expensive. Um, but in any case, I tend to focus more on red meat, but I find it's too. I love food and I always love food. And so I like variety. And again, I'm not strict for any religious reason. I'm not strict for any um, reason of trying to maintain my place in community or anything like that. I don't have there's no quote unquote accountability in terms of being really strict with it. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And so because I like food, I like to cook and I like to enjoy my food, I like to look at it and want to eat it. And so if I just eat ground beef or steak every day, I don't want it after a while. There have been times where I've cried over a bowl of ground beef. I've cried over a plate of steak because I didn't want it anymore. And it got to the point where I would eat 2 bites and then, oh, I'm comfortably stuffed. You hear that kind of phrase, eat until you're comfortably stuffed. And it's like, oh, I don't want any food anymore, so I must be done. But I could recognize my energy levels were too low. I could recognize that I was starting to lose weight and look very gaunt. And so I thought, no, you need to eat more. And so whatever motivates you to eat more, just make it animal based, right? So if I include dairy, because I also heard that, I thought, how can I make myself eat more red meat? And I heard, if you put cheese on it, you'll eat until, you'll be able to eat until you're comfortably stuffed, right? So I thought, okay, so I'm going to add some cheese back. And I drink cream because it's an easy fat, like compared to some of the other fats. And I really love pork. I can eat anything pork, but pork isn't the key, right? The red meat is better, I think. So I don't, and I also want to have a variety for another reason. I don't eat good quality food. And so let's say that there is something environmentally wrong with the beef that I'm eating. And that's why my body is telling me, it's enough of that. We don't really want this anymore. But if you put chicken in front of me, I can devour it like I have a really good appetite. But if it's red meat, then suddenly it's like I really don't want any of this. And it's like, well, maybe there may be something environmentally wrong with it. And I can take a break with something else, with still getting protein, still getting some good, animal fat soluble vitamins and things like that. And so you know, I try to keep it exciting enough for me to stay motivated to do it. And I just sort of limit myself to things that are within the animal kingdom. So I'll have salmon. I love salmon. Salmon's my favorite fish. If I could get catfish out here, I would, but I can't find catfish in Japan. Those are my two favorite fishes, and they're pretty fatty fishes. So I think that's fine. I eat a lot of butter, and unfortunately, I have too much cream. I will admit I have too much dairy generally. But I also like asari clams. I'm not sure if you know what they are, but they're just a particular kind of like seafood that I think help me feel like I'm getting more micronutrients.
They're really small clams, right?
They're very small. They're very, they come pre-cooked, I think, and I just make a soup out of them because I like soup. I like food. Like I like salads. I like soup. I like different things. So it makes me if I just how can I say? Sometimes I just want soup, so I just make a sorry clam soup, for example. Yeah, like that. In terms of like quote unquote cheating, every now and again I'll have kimchi because I love kimchi. I like spicy. I like crunchy. It's vegetables, so it's like it's crunchy vegetables. But too much will set me off. So it's a very little bit. It's just enough to satisfy that, that craving of something cold and crispy and spicy. And I have miso soup. It's Japan. It's easy to say no rice. And miso soup is delicious. I love it. I didn't come to Japan for nothing. So sometimes on occasion I'll have miso soup, but I haven't had either of those in months. Like it's been a really long time.
So, and you don't feel any regression in the gastrointestinal issues when you have dairy?
Oh no, that to me was also something that was very surprising because I had some kind of sensitivity to milk, very specifically milk, not dairy. Ice cream has been my one of my go-to foods, and I never got digestive upset from ice cream or from cheese or something like that. So maybe I might get that. I always thought, okay, cheese constipates you, and I think it really did back then. But I'm convinced it's the combination of some crap that I was eating that I should not have been eating, some plant garbage, together with that. And so that's why for me it's an animal-based thing, because I can eat those things. I think I mentioned before that I was having cheese. I was having like hamburger with cheese on top, and sometimes with egg, and sometimes with bacon on top. um, and none of those things were setting me off. And it was the same thing with me not getting heartburn from eating these spoonfuls of grease and animal fat. What? Right? It was the same thing with the milk. I thought if I have milk, I'm definitely gonna go to the bathroom. So now I can have all the dairy products I had before with no problem. The cheese doesn't necessarily constipate me, but milk, there's still a little something there. So like if I drink milk, I can feel something, but it doesn't lead to diarrhea like it used to. And it's like it's bloating and maybe a little bit of gas, but it's tolerable. The amount of it being tolerable compared to what it was like before is night and day. So if I want to have some, I will have some. But it is definitely milk. I do not drink milk generally. I drink cream, if that, if anything.
And do you get any reaction from colleagues or students or anyone in Japan when they notice you're not eating rice, you're not eating vegetables, you're not eating this kind of normal stuff?
Yes. So I am a very independent person. And so it's one of the reasons why I always try to solve problems on my own. And one of the main reasons why I don't want to be in and out of a doctor's office. Right? I don't want help. And so I'm the kind of person who um, I am an introvert, a very strong, heavy introvert. So I don't really have friends here. I have one friend, she lives in Tokyo. I don't live in Tokyo. So we talk to each other on Facebook, and I talk to my friends and family on Facebook. But other than that, there has been no pressure, no social pressure, because I don't go out. First of all, I don't go out to eat at all, but I just don't go out generally. And when I go to restaurants and I ask, especially in the beginning, it was such a trial because it's in Japanese and my Japanese is not great. So I still wind up with some rice. And I think, I know I asked you not to bring me rice. What is this? Right. Or, if I do say that, they will still try to encourage me to buy something. So I'll be like, no carbohydrates, please. And then later they'll be back with like some bread. I'm like, why would I? Because I usually order something else. How can I put this? Food, when you eat out, I feel you can trust red meat more to be undercooked than if you buy it at the supermarket and cook it yourself. So something, but it's kind of expensive. So after I finish eating the first bit, I'm like, I want more. So then I order something else. And I think the staff always tries to offer something in a way that they didn't used to do. Like, are you sure that you don't want the vegetables on the side? Let me check with my manager, for example. I'm like, well, just bring me the meat. Like, why is it such a difficult thing? That has been the biggest way that I've received any feedback. And I've told my family and friends about it online, but they don't really respond as much. They just don't really say much. So it is what it is.
Yeah. The thing I've found about Japanese restaurants is often that kind of, you sure, can I just put it on the side or let me just bring it anyway or something? It's almost like they feel like, well, if I don't bring it, they're going to want a discount. So I
Exactly.
need
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
try and get it on the plate somehow.
Exactly. Yeah. That definitely was. I remember I went out to eat one time and I didn't ask for rice. And the guy was so insistent, and he went and got his manager to explain to me, you can't get a discount. I thought, I'm not trying to get a discount. Please stop. I didn't ask for a discount. Right. And so there is a barbecue place not too far from here. And I miss barbecue because I'm from America, and America's barbecue, especially during the summertime. And so unfortunately, it's really expensive, and it comes as a set with two sides, and none of the sides have any food. It's coleslaw, that's not food. Fries, that's not food. Bread, that's not food. Steamed vegetables, what is that? That's not food. I'm like, I don't want either of those things, but I have to, pay for them every time I get the barbecue. And so it's like, as much as I want to eat barbecue every day, it's like, not only is it really expensive, but I always have to throw something out or like pay for something to throw out. So after a while, I just decided to stop going out. It's just easier, it's cheaper. And I like to cook. I want to cook more. And I just told myself, if you want some fancy food, some nice food, then cook it yourself. That's what I told myself.
So like at this stage, do you feel this is what the way you're going to be for the rest of your life?
For me, food has long been a passion. Food has been a passion for me since I was a child. As a child, I watched the Food Network religiously. Everybody else is watching cartoons. Like, where is Jackie? Jackie's in her room alone, introvert. Okay, and what is she doing? What is she doing in there? She's watching Curtis Akins, right? Right? She's watching Sandra Moten. Okay, like she's watching Yan Can Cook, like on TV. That's what she's doing, right? And I love design programs and things like that because I'm a very creative person, and so food is an outlet like that. It's a creative outlet for me. So the idea of restricting myself and telling myself, from now until the end of time, you shouldn't eat this way. You can't have these things. That is, it doesn't compute. So I know I'm going to be very flexible. I know at some point, once I get a real kitchen, because kitchens in Japan are too small, but once I get a real kitchen with like a real stove with actual floor burners and an oven, I'm going to go all in, right? And it doesn't mean I'm going to go back 100% to what I was doing before, but I've found some really interesting like carnivore recipes and things like that I just want to try. I love making things with my hands. I love the process of it and the end result of it. Food is just part of that. I draw, I write stories and things like that, and food is one of those things. And so I do the best that I can with what I have, but unfortunately, I can't make it that much of a permanent thing. Carbs are not going to play a main role in my diet ever again, I think, because the impact is too immediate and too bad. And vegetables, at the same in the same token, it could be a little bit here or there, but they are never going to play a main role in my meals again. So 100% animal based for life, but I can't say anything anywhere near strict carnivore or zero carb. I don't understand what zero carb is. It doesn't compute. Like, it just simply doesn't compute. I don't understand what that is. Right? I like spices and things like that.
If someone came to you asking for advice about getting started with carnivore, what advice would you give them?
First of all, transition slowly, and understand that you should make changes slowly, not just transitioning your diet slowly, but any other lifestyle change should also come slow. You cannot I don't think it's possible for any single human being to overcome addiction to sugar, food addiction generally, right? You have to get over that too. But then also addiction to sugar and addiction to caffeine, for example, all those things at the same time. And when I tried to go cold turkey, that was one of the main reasons why it didn't work. And every single time I took something away, it took a lot of time to get back on track. Then once I get back on track, then I could take another thing out, and then it would take a long time to get back on track. So first of all, transition slowly and understand it's going to take time, and be willing to experiment. Be willing to, test what is sustainable for you. Don't look at somebody else and think that that's the key. And lastly, I would say, don't care about the scale. If you have a scale, throw it out. It's going to ruin it. It's going to ruin your life. If it hasn't ruined your life now, it will absolutely ruin your life. Just get rid of it. The scale has been a reason why I've decided to just, I've, it isn't one of the main reasons, but I definitely have crashed after checking the scale at least on one occasion. And it would discourage me so much, that the point isn't to lose weight, but the point is to basically, I wanted to feel as though I was making progress. And I thought that was one way to measure progress. And so measure progress in ways that make sense. Okay, so the scale isn't going to tell you anything. I could have gained muscle. How would I know, right? Scale cannot give you real answers. How do you feel? Right? Judge it based on how you feel. How do your clothes fit? For example, things that are more reasonable. Things like that. And then also, there may be some things that you encounter that are new. And so having community is good. So say, for example, my eyes, there's kind of like a dark eye circle. I didn't used to have it before. And so kind of checking other people's stories, and I've learned that some people have resolved their problem with dark eye circles, but then some people, theirs have gotten worse. It could come with age. It could come with, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, with weight loss, for example. Like, my face is much more gaunt than it used to be. Like, when I wash my face, I can just feel bone in a way that I didn't used to feel before. So I think maybe I just lost a lot of fat or something here. And that can cause it. And hearing other people's stories can help you understand it's not the end of the world, or, oh, I'm not dying or anything like that. Just check the stories and see what seems reasonable to expect and what does not, or if something happens, if it seems reasonable, if there's a good reason for it, and then some possible solutions for it, for example. So, reach out to people if you ever feel you have some questions.
Jackie, do you have any social media or anything if people want to reach out to you?
Yeah, I have a lot of social media, but I think the most relevant one would probably be my YouTube channel.
Right.
The name is Forever for Never Vegan.
Forever for never vegan.
Yes. And so basically, the idea of it isn't to say that, oh, don't be vegan. You can be whatever you want. It's your life, make your own choices. But I'm the kind of person, again, I'm a very independent person, and I don't need labels, and I don't consider myself to actually need community. And so I think people can get really dogmatic, and they can feel stuck because of the label or the category. That's what it's about. It doesn't mean that you can't give veganism a try if you really believe in it or whatever. It just means, don't, even if I did everything that was considered vegan, don't put that label on me. That's basically what the idea is. I'm me. See me as me, for example. But yeah, and so I think that's the most relevant social media is that YouTube channel. I'm not active now because I wanted to wait until after I got over the coffee to see what my results would be like, and then if I could still promote it like with the same feeling of strain. Because getting over coffee was like a big thing for me, and I'm like, okay, just take your time. Whenever you're ready, you get back to it.
No worries. So I'll link to your channel in the show notes. Jackie, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciated chatting with you. Thank you.